you some things. I am going to email the entire report once all the pictures are actually downloaded and complete. I have about 2/3 done. So we'll start with the summary page. What we're looking for today is major deficiencies, safety deficiency, and maintenance concerns. Noted items we have down here, they're going to be in dark bold ink like they are at the top of the report. I always recommend reading the entire report because what you feel is important isn't always going to be what we're kind of looking for. So there's always a difference of opinion. What we'll start with for potential safety concerns is we have a loose damaged handrail at the bottom of the front steps. Always recommend those be secured to enhance safety.
Have you noticed that one?
The door coming in from the garage. So essentially, when the garage was added, it was acceptable to put that hollow core door on the garage. Now they always recommend installing a solid door or a metal core door just to kind of enhance fire safety. Conduit. So on the conduit in the back of the house for the electrical mast is not properly secured. They probably did that when they put the new siding on. Just needs to be secured to the home. That way if something were to fall down on the power lines, it doesn't pull the whole mast off, it just pops the wires. Also on the electrical wires. So you can see right here we have a small section of exposed copper. That's going to be at the butt splice, which goes from the home to the shed. So you see it right in there, and then you also have the exposed single strand wiring at both locations. Typically all that wire is covered up because it doesn't have the UV protection, and it also causes deterioration over time. The next one, inside the wall cavities downstairs in the basement that are exposed, we have some exposed Romex. It was acceptable up until a couple of years ago. Now everything has to be covered. You know, just about every house we come across has that. I don't. It's kind of a fine line because it's acceptable in some counties and it's not in others, and we don't do a code inspection, so we're just looking for potential safety issues. Above the water heater, you can see we have a piece of conduit with a couple of strands of single strand wiring in there. That conduit just needs to be pushed back together to make sure we don't have any damage from the conduit rubbing on the wires. Shed, I didn't do anything with the exception of the electrical. Sheds, outbuildings, all that are excluded from the home inspection. I did note all of the outlets in the shed are ungrounded. There's only one GFI, which is going to be at the back side of the shed. Also, left side of the door to the shed, we have an interior light switch. They have exterior light switches out here for the floodlights. Should be an interior or exterior light switch to prevent any moisture. On the front porch, the neutral and the ground are actually reversed. So it is a safety concern. Outlet's probably not going to work the way it's intended. They just inadvertently hook the outlet up backward. Number 10, smoke detectors. So technically you have to have one at the exterior of every bedroom. So there's one up front, there is none back here. Should have one on the ceiling of the dining room to enhance fire safety. On the water heater, you can see at the bottom of the temperature pressure relief valve, we did have a little bit of leakage. So what we do, we try and run everything inside of the home and go above and beyond normal use. Filling things up, draining things at the same time. I ran the tubs, all that, and then we try and drain the water heater with the tubs. So with all that hot water expiring, even though there is an expansion tank on the water heater, it did leak a little bit at that temperature pressure relief. Number 12 is something I can't really confirm on. So what we have is a high efficiency furnace. Typically when you take a high efficiency furnace out of the chimney system, you have to reduce the size of the flue. And the reason you do that is to allow the smaller BTU unit to complete the draft and get all the exhaust fumes out of the home. I can't see in there because the chimney not only is too tall, but they also have the flue covers on top of it. So might want to confirm with somebody, an HVAC contractor or a plumber, to see if it's been done. If it hasn't, you might want to reduce. Typically when they do that, they'll just drop a metal flex liner down in, connect it to the water heater, and you're good to go. The air conditioner, too cold to operate that today, but you can see we have an OPPD control module. Which is fine. Typically those are excluded, but this one once again isn't secured to the home. Want to make sure that's secured to the home because it does have power. We jump to maintenance concerns. So you have a stucco chimney. Anytime you have stucco, everything has to stay properly sealed up. Stucco is just a concrete based material, and realistically concrete or moisture does transfer through concrete and creates issues over time. So the concern with these small cracks and on top of the crown, what happens there is you get moisture in the wintertime, it freezes or causes separation and damage. Due to the age of the home and the fact that we have large trees, we always recommend having the waste lines at least scoped out once a year, just to kind of just to kind of make sure everything is going to be, I guess, clean and clear. There is no garbage disposal, which is kind of a bonus in my eyes, because a garbage disposal is probably one of the worst things you can do for your plumbing system, hands down.
Oh, good to know. There you go. Did you hear that?
I literally put nothing down the drain.
Why do you not like a garbage disposal?
Because most people, once the sink is empty, they shut the disposal off, shut the water off, dry their hands, and walk away. However, you should let water run under, because what happens is all that stuff coagulates underneath the house and just slowly builds up and actually stops the home from draining. So it's just something I don't like. Plumbers aren't very fond of it, just because of the fact it doesn't keep everything flowing as it should.
There you go. So don't put one in.
People think a disposal means dispose all.
Right.
Exactly.
They put all
And
kinds
it
of stuff
is
down
not.
there they shouldn't.
Yeah.
So, and then the last one we have, the hall bathroom right here. Obviously we have some loose tile. It's an older bathroom, so at some point in time you might want to consider upgrading that surround, just to kind of prevent any moisture damage inside of the walls.
That's in the bathroom you want to redo, Mom. So you're good.
Perfect.
Not a problem.
I figured as much. Everything else has been redone but that bathroom. So, any questions what we've gone over so far?
Nope.
Okay. So now we'll take a look at our picture.
PEX
Yes,
stuff.
I was actually going to do that with the plumbing. So we're
Okay.
still kind of waiting on confirmation. I know PEX tubing is a concern for you guys. It is acceptable in Douglas County with the clear sections. The part that we come across is going to be the red and the blue portions. Reason for that being is because it comes on a roll. Also, from my understanding, the manufacturer has not reached out to the city of Omaha to allow it to be acceptable. I'm still waiting on some information as far as that particular item. What I'll probably end up doing is putting that in the report as a potential maintenance concern, that if you have any questions or concerns, consult with a plumbing contractor. Reason being is, as I said before, we don't do a code inspection. We're trying to make everything happen as much as we can, and from what I can see, everything's been replaced except for there's copper underneath the sink, copper to the tub, and then from what I can tell, it looks like we have a couple of galvanized elbows going to the bathroom sink, which you're going to replace. But other than that, everything that I can tell is going to be replaced with either copper or the PEX tubing.
Great.
And so you think it's probably acceptable the way that it is, other though?
I
Confirming
don't have an
plumber.
issue with it, as long as it's secured. I mean, if it's just kind of loopy and droopy on the floor joist, then yes, it becomes an issue. I myself like the PEX tubing better than some of the plastic replacements. CPVC is essentially a PVC pipe that's glued together. Glue breaks down over time. These clamps typically don't. I've never seen anything come across or become loose. So to me, it's one of the better options if you're not going to go with copper. Now we'll go through our pictures. Like I said, about 90% of these are going to be in the report. Let me know if you can't see because of the glare. So not only do I take pictures of deficiencies, I also take pictures to kind of show you what we've done. A lot of the home inspections we do, it's a lot of money for most people, and it's a service that I want to make sure that you know I really did my job. So here we have the dishwasher running through the full cycle. You have the cooktop, the oven. We don't operate for temperature, we're just making sure that it functions. Got a picture of the broiler, the hood, the light fixture. Hood fan actually goes up and out over to the side of the house, which I was very surprised.
Yeah, no doubt.
Then I fill the kitchen sinks. So I fill the sinks up and I let them sit for about 15-20 minutes and kind of simulate doing dishes. It's a lot of weight to put in the sink, see if it's going to pull away from the countertop, see if we're going to leak at the baskets, things of that nature. Then we have our loose tile in the hall bathroom area. Tub is full. Once the tub is full, we drain it. The shower ran for 20 minutes, flush the toilet probably 4 or 5 times. Once again, trying to pressurize things, make things leak, floor drains back up, had none of the above. There we have a non-professional shower installation. Flushing the toilet, filling the
You
sink,
like that?
no leaks. And here we have copper piping going to the hall bathroom, no leakage. There's going to be your hot and ground reverse, which is going to be on the front porch. After I drain the kitchen sinks, no leaks, no backing up at the floor drain. Got the brass clean out. Then we have the washing machine hookups. So typically for the washing machine, I always recommend steel braided supply lines. They're going to offer more of a guarantee not to burst on you. Filled up the sink, filled up the tub. Once the tub is full, we drained everything, as I said before. Showers run for 20 minutes, flushing the toilet 4 or 5 times, trying to see if we can get things to back up. Then we have the crawl space access. That has all been sealed up. Typically, I will remove the panel and get inside. This one is completely covered up with plastic. Typically what they do when they redo the basement, they cover everything up with a vapor barrier, then they kind of start furring everything out. So I did not get inside of the crawl space because I don't want to cause damage to that vapor barrier, so the crawl space was excluded.
Where does the crawl space go from there?
Sunroom.
Okay.
That's
I was
it.
gonna say it's gonna become
And so the sunroom at one point in time was a sunroom. It wasn't a finished space.
Yeah.
The windows in between the sunroom and the bedroom are actually stuck in that position, but all the other windows are going to be functional. So there's your main clean out. That's going to be downstairs in the basement. And we have the main water shut off, secondary shut off, all together. Water softener, did not essentially test it. To test that, we'd have to do a water analysis. Now the water heater, you can see we have no leakage at this point in time. This is after I ran everything upstairs, then I went downstairs, and then I started filling everything up. So there was no leakage then. You got your gas shut off, cold water shut offs, no leakage, with the expansion tank. So I was kind of surprised to actually see the temperature pressure relief valve leak, because the expansion tanks are installed to minimize that, kind of take some of the pressure out of the water heater. So it's either going to be still building up too much pressure, maybe something with the expansion tank, or maybe even a faulty temperature pressure relief valve. Model and serial numbers of the unit, it's a 2015 50 gallon. Then you have the fuse for the furnace and fan and electrical. Gas shut off. Furnace filter. So this used to be the filter with the combs in it, and the combs are actually on top of the furnace right there. They replaced it with one of the box filters. Now some people claim those filters will last anywhere from 3 to 6 months, sometimes up to a year. Still have to make sure that they get inspected periodically to make sure they're clean. Your humidifier and humidistat. That's going to be the last time the furnace was serviced. Looks like it was serviced in 2020 from what I can tell. Model and serial numbers. Electrical panel. Inside the panel, surprisingly, everything is wired correctly.
Yay.
Well, and tell them about the outlets. I was so impressed by that.
So typically in a home, when a home is flipped or remodeled, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the expression lipstick on a pig.
Yeah. It's one of my dad's favorites. He's listening.
We actually see that quite frequently in a remodel. These folks actually look like they've done a very good job. Just about every outlet in the house I could find and accessible is going to be grounded.
Nice.
Most of the time they
That's
just
very
either
unusual.
throw a GFI by
Right.
the sinks, or they ground those to the plumbing, and that's about it. So from
Yeah.
what I can tell with my tester, everything in the home is grounded.
Great.
Here you can, here you can see a little bit of mildew staining. That's going to be downstairs by the water heater, most likely from the old water heater expiring and leaking. Then, surprisingly enough, the water heater was leaking at the bottom. So, kind of ironic that fate led me back to that. Usually, I don't go back and double check items for leakage. I just run everything. So, had some leakage there.
What do you recommend with that?
Have a plumber come out and find out what exactly we have going on.
Yeah.
You know, so like I said, it could be as
That was
minimal.
after maximum exposure, right?
Well, yeah, that was after I filled up the bathtub downstairs. Because when I filled up the main level and everything, it did not leak. Everything was dry. Then I filled up the basement, and ironically, I went back to check a few other things that I knew I had to look at that I didn't the first time, and that's when I noticed the water leaking right there. So you can just see a small droplet of water hanging off the bottom of that valve.
Yeah, and sometimes that's even hard to recreate. Like when a plumber comes out, we
Exactly.
have what we call plumbers out, and they
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
actually even get it to do it again.
It really is, because in order for a plumber to most likely get this to happen,
Yeah.
well, let's see if
They'd have to fill everything and drain
Yes.
everything
Right,
at the same
exactly.
time like an
Right.
inspector does.
Which
I
isn't going to
have to-
happen normally.
I have to
Yeah.
get back to the med center, Mom.
I'm
so
still
Don is
recording.
recording everything. Rob is all over it. He's taking notes on everything too. But we'll call you later tonight. But or if Rob can figure out how to FaceTime. I don't think he has FaceTime. But yeah,
No,
there's
we're
my
good.
alarm again. Okay.
I'm
All
not
right.
hearing anything that's of significant concern.
No, I mean for the age of the house, it's in great
for 100
condition.
years old, she's in phenomenal shape.
Yeah.
You know, I know there was a concern with the front porch moving. I didn't see any significance with that. It's solid. Now, if we would have had a wood front porch with
Yeah.
piers up front that had movement, then we start to see other things shifting and settling. The roof starts to sag. It does show some movement in the foundation, which is going to be in the right front corner of the garage, but nothing in my eyes that's significant.
Okay.
If you don't have movement in a foundation in a home of this age,
Oh, it's shocking.
Yeah,
we've
it's-
owned all- we've
it's
owned
never
all
going to
of them,
happen,
yeah.
or that means somebody's actually redone the foundation.
For sure.
So
for sure.
Okay.
even in the garage
Good
over
idea.
here, we did see some movement on that left side, and that's just due to drainage from the left side of the garage. So you can see that horizontal crack. There's maybe about a 1/4 inch of movement in about a 4-foot section, so nothing significant.
Do you feel like the excavation for the garage add-on was done pretty well then overall?
I think it needs some more soil at the left side of that garage because there's kind of a depression and then it drains down towards the driveway. So you might want to kind of build up with a retaining wall just to get everything draining away from that area. You know, because there's basement wall contractors that come in and they'll put earth anchors and steel plates in and all this good stuff and charge, you know, $15,000-$20,000, and they'll stop it from moving for sure. But they don't address the exterior. Some of them do. I'm not saying they all do that, but some just don't address the exterior. And if you address the exterior, usually you're not going to get any movement or water infiltration.
Yeah. Okay. All right,
Okay.
I'm gonna roll back.
Okay.
Don's recording. Don's recording, Mom, right there. Okay.
Have a good day. Nice to
Bye,
meet
guys.
you.
Thank you all.
So here we have our exposed Romex to the wall, which, like I said, is pretty common. I kind of consider that Darwin's theory. Right rear corner of the garage. Garage door is a safety reverse. Anybody goes underneath, she pops right back up. You can see we have our cables running through the springs. That way, in the event those springs snap while they're under tension, they're not going to hurt anybody. There's our horizontal crack at the left side wall of the garage, right across the mortar joint. And then we get to the attic. So with the attic being partially finished, kind of minimizes what we can see with all that insulation. Surprisingly enough, I didn't see any knob and tube wiring up there with the exception of the stuff inside of the garbage can. All looked like it was in pretty good shape. Windows are very sticky up there, obviously don't get operated very often. You can see a new 2x4 right up here. We'll address that in a few. So they had a cracked rafter, sistered everything up. Looks like she's sistered good, shouldn't have any issues with it. Some point in time, if you're going to finish, obviously you want to continue the railing and upgrade that. And there's the rafter. So this is the front side of it and the back side. So they've sistered everything up. Looks like she's stable. There's our conduit section that's separated right above the water heater. A little better picture right here. A little more clear. So like I said, just need to push those back together to enhance safety. We get to the roof of the garage. The roof on the garage is older. It's probably in the last half of its life expectancy. We do have some areas with some granular loss, which is pretty common for these rolled roofs.
How are people often addressing these now? Do they put down metal, like tear that off, put down metal, or are most people replacing those flat roofs with asphalt? Or
You know, a lot of people, you know, with a roof like this, what some people may do is kind of put a rubber roof down, and then most people that I see, they'll build a small deck or
Build a
platform
deck
on
above it.
there, and then build up, you know, protective layers so they don't cause damage to it, and you know,
Yeah, the rubber membrane is what my roofers are typically doing.
definitely pretty nice. The rubber membrane does last a lot longer, so you just got to make sure you don't walk on it causing punctures.
yeah.
The roof itself all looked like it was in great shape. We do have some hail dings on the front side fascia. Kind of hard to see in the pictures, but it's just on the front of the home and the front of the shed, which,
So you didn't see it on the siding, just on the fascia?
yep, just on that front fascia.
That's pretty soft metal.
It is. Well, and I don't know if that was actually replaced. I don't know when the siding was installed, but the siding actually looks newer. Some of the trim looks newer than some of the actual fascia.
Okay, yeah.
So the chimney. So like I said, typically what we see inside of a chimney that's been reduced is you'll see maybe a 6-inch flue coming up with a regular furnace type cap on it. Here you don't see anything. From what I can tell, those are still going to be your 8x12 clay flue tile. And if in fact that is true, just have to have a metal flue liner run up. Typically when MUD comes in and inspects a furnace, they're going to require that to be done. I just had one the other day that was a 2011 that hadn't been done. So it's just kind of hit or miss, but we always recommend that upgrade be done. Now, I didn't see any signs of backdrafting on the water heater. It looked like it was all venting correctly, no charring. I didn't feel anything coming through the flue pipe. So it does feel like it's drafting as intended, but as a safety enhancement, you might want to reduce the size of that. Like I said, just some small cracks, pretty minimal. Just got to make sure everything's sealed up. With water, well, there's a will, there's a way. This is actually standing on the garage roof, small crack there, and just a little bit through here. Then we have our electrical meter. So typically, they're going to secure the mast up here. That way, like I said before, if a tree limb comes down the power lines, it's not going to pull that off, potentially even the meter. This is the picture we had. So this is actual exposed copper. So
Yeah,
this is coming.
that's just right over your shoulder, right?
This is actually in the house.
On the house side?
Correct.
Okay, they have the same sort of construct out there on the...
They do, and everything is good to,
Okay.
it's all pushed together, no exposed
Yeah.
copper. But typically, we like to see something over this wiring just to prevent that sheathing from
Yeah.
getting deteriorated.
Should these be in a box of some sort?
Typically, no. You just
No,
have a
they
butt
just
splice like
splice
that.
them and leave them in the weather.
So,
okay.
I'm actually surprised to see the size of wire they chose to go from the home to the shed. To be honest with you, when I saw the braided wire going to the shed, I thought there was going to be an electrical panel back in there, but there was not. And that's at the shed, so.
Yeah.
There's your interior light switch, left side of that door of the shed. Then the hose faucet. So what I do with the hose faucet, I cap that and then turn it on with the intent to see if it's going to leak inside. This is a frost-free hose bib, so it's truly not going to leak until you turn it on, which is a reason for capping it. Then we have the model and serial numbers. The air conditioner is a 1992. I highly recommend having it cleaned and serviced on an annual basis. There's your OPPD control module. I'm actually holding it up. Radon mitigation system. We don't test those. We don't test for radon unless it's asked for. But I will kind of go through a couple of things with you downstairs in the basement and show you this. This is going to be your electrical disconnect, and this is going to be the fan itself. There's a manometer downstairs, which is going to be behind that panel, which is essentially just a U-tube of fluid.
I'm glad you found that. I looked for it when we were here and I couldn't find it.
Typically, I don't uncover panels, but in an older home, things like that, you know, you kind of want to peek behind, especially when the whole thing's been finished. But with that manometer downstairs, it's creating that suction, which is causing the fluid to come up. If you ever see that or don't hear the fan running, then you know the system's not functioning correctly. It could be just something as simple as somebody didn't know what that fan was for or that switch was for and shut it off. Couple areas with some gap trim. That's going to be at the right front on the side of the home. Got the gas meter they've installed in the exterior, which is a nice safety enhancement. And then we have some movement on the right side foundation of the front porch. Nothing on the front. Nothing on this front corner. But you can see there's a high spot right here where it just almost looks like it was intended for drainage. Obviously, I don't think that's what it was from, but I don't feel anything. You know, I can typically feel a lot of movement, cracks, things like that under carpet, especially something that thin, if there's an issue.
Do you think that's a poured concrete porch?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
it has the bricks all the way around the perimeter, and then what do you think they did?
It's tough to say. I mean, when they're poured like this, usually we can't get underneath to find out what they've done. Most of the time when it's poured, they build your foundation and the footing, and then they fill everything with dirt, compact it, and then they pour the stoop on top of that.
Okay.
You know, with something like this, it's honestly tough to tell, but it is very solid and it doesn't have any movement to it. As far as, you know, we were talking about the movement of it, I think you were downstairs. Had it been a wood stoop with the piers on the sides and the side of the steps with some movement, then it might be a different issue. But with this being as solid as it is, I don't see a lot of issue. Carpet is definitely not something you want to keep on the front stoop or steps either, just because it has the ability to retain moisture. Sidewalks were all good, no trip hazards as of now. You can see we have some movement up by the tree. They've ground those down. Definitely something you're gonna have to keep an eye on for normal maintenance to continue to grinding them down, or at some point in time remove the tree. Some cracking on the sidewalk or the patio. Let's try it with the driveway. Now the retaining walls, they're old, they're still there, but you can see some areas where they have some missing stone. Obviously recommend upgrading. There's a couple down here, so it has shown some signs of movement in the past. So from what I can tell, this section right here, that's the only portion of the wall that belongs to you guys. From what I've always been told in the past, if it's holding up your soil, it's your wall. Looks like we have a low spot in the drainage here, so everything comes down here and may pool up kind of by those rocks. And then the fence, typically we don't do a lot with the fences, but the whole right side does have a little bit of movement. Looks like she's leaning. A little bit of low soil here we kind of touched on already. Just a piece of gapped fascia. Typically you can push that up and then over towards the back of the soffit. Pictures around the home. There's some movement on the right side of the sunroom foundation. And this is going to be the little bit of movement and cracking we can see, and that's going to be on the left side of the front porch in the garage. Shed, like I said, we didn't do anything but electrical. Fireplace. A little bit of creosote buildup on the inside of the flue, kind of where everything starts to go up. Other than that, looks like it's pretty clean and in good shape. Furnace on, and there's your manometer. So typically what I do is up top here, that's going to be where there's a piece of plastic hose.
Which room is this in?
This is in the laundry room, so this is going to be the plug for the washing machine, I do believe.
Okay.
So you pop that cover off,
Yep.
and
there's the manometer.
usually I'll disconnect this hose, and the reason I do that, then your fluid all drops down level to the even area. And that's more of just a visual to literally show you as the homeowner the system's functioning. Dishwasher dry. No leaks, and back to the beginning.
Excellent.
Any questions?
No, I mean it seems pretty thorough. You didn't see anything that was a deal killer. No.
Not
major
in my
problems,
eyes.
yeah. Lots of little things to address, but
You know, the only thing is, you know, that PEX tubing, and that somewhat bothers me because it's acceptable everywhere but Omaha. When I say acceptable,
yeah.
You know, to me it's a fine line because then we start crossing the area of codes. For example, in Douglas County, everything has to be in conduit. You can't run it through the wall cavity. Sarpy County, you can. Potawatomi County, you can run it right up out of the panel and across the bottom of the floor joist. Same thing in Lincoln. So it's things that, you know, codes are something that is somewhat baffling. I don't like code inspections because some of them are just so absurd and ridiculous.
Yeah.
So yes.
Okay.
But yeah, everything in this home that I could tell, she's in pretty good shape. She's solid. You know, nice siding on the outside. The only challenge is you can't see what's behind it.
Yeah.
Kind of like all that insulation upstairs. They got a lot of insulation. Can't see what's underneath it. But you know, if you go on the impression that you see everywhere around, everything's pretty clean. So if you'd like, we can kind of walk you through and show you some things.
Sure. Be great.
We'll start downstairs with the good stuff. What I call the good stuff. You can see they have an electrical fence up there. There's conduit or Romex back at the left rear, kind of by the shed. And my guess is that's where that outlet on the back of the shed. So in the electrical panel, once again, surprisingly, everything is wired correctly. Usually the homes that we come across, I'd say about 85 to 90% of them, there's something wired wrong. Your main breaker's up top, flip that to the right, kills power to the entire home. These two breakers, the north bedroom and the master bedroom, these are going to be an arc fault breaker. So they're real similar to a GFI. If they have any fluctuation of power, they're going to trip. To return power, you actually have to shut them off and then turn them back on. So it's something a lot of people, they'll just try and turn it back on and you're never going to regain power. like I said, down here, everything is surprisingly in great shape. You know, you can see they've put insulation pretty much everywhere inside of the home. I can't tell you last time I saw a home with this much insulation on just the bottom of the floor joist.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that.
So once again, you can see we have some of the blue PEX tubing. You know, kind of a technicality. We'll kind of address that in the report. That way you can actually potentially have somebody out and look at it if you choose to. But to me, like I said, I don't see any issues, no leakage, and it looks like it's secure.
Yeah.
So this is going to be your floor drain, which is going to be for the furnace, air conditioner, and the dehumidifier if you choose to keep one. Typically, you familiar with moisture sensors at all? So I actually have the what's called a watchdog moisture sensor. You can actually stand them upright. I have probably 6 or 7 of them floating throughout the house, under the sinks, under the kids' bathroom and their toilet, down by the floor drain. Up to a 32nd of an inch of moisture, it'll scream at you, letting you know there's an issue. I do have one upstairs that we'll take a look at once we actually start going through. Any questions in here? Okay. The crawl space back here, I left this out intentionally.
Yep.
You know, there's your door, she's secured, and also the fact it's covered up with the vapor barrier, which typically we don't disassemble. Yeah, this is where your manometer is located.
I see.
And like I said, this section of the hose, there's a small, maybe a 1/4 inch hole, if that, drilled into the PVC piping. And the only reason that is there is to physically show, once again, you as the homeowner, that the system's functioning.
I'm glad you found that because I literally hunted for that when we were here. I could not find it, but I did not open things in the wall.
Rubber supply lines, they do look like they're a little bit heavier gauge, maybe larger size hose, but once again, typically, we like to see the
braided, yeah.
Yep, the steel braided. Any questions in here at all?
No.
Okay. We'll head up to the front where the water shutoffs are. So up here, you have your main water shutoff down below, parallel on, perpendicular off. You also have the secondary. One before the meter and one after. You got the PEX tubing, which once again, we're going to address. You have the water softener, which once again, typically we don't do anything with, just because of the fact we have to do a water analysis.
Okay.
Any questions in here? So like I said, we talked about the furnace filter. Those are going to be the combs, and literally if you choose to get the April Air style with the space guard, it comes in a filter about that thick and just kind of comb everything together. Most people are going to the box filters. They're a little bit more pricey because there's more material, but they're a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So over here on this side, you have the gas shut off. Once again, parallel on, perpendicular off. And up top here, you have the fuse for the furnace air conditioner fan. I always recommend when you take possession, buy an extra pack of those and just put them on top of the furnace. That way, if the fuse does blow, nothing works. You come downstairs, self-diagnose, you at least check that first. Water heater, well, she's dry now. Kind of like Dawn said, it may be a challenge for the plumbers to actually reproduce that, but nonetheless, it is something we do recommend.
Okay.
Water shut off up here, parallel on, perpendicular off. We have no leakage, and as I said, you can see no staining, no discoloration on top of the water heater from anything backdrafting, not venting correctly. Like I said, typically we have a larger flue pipe coming out, so it can actually be expanded, but smaller than the flue that actually goes through. And then up top here is going to be that conduit that has been separated.
Oh, that's the one, yep.
Okay. Once again, the mildew staining down here, most likely from an old water heater. Any questions in here?
Where does this go? Did you?
I did not
happen to
look at
notice
that.
where
I
it
didn't
went?
see it.
I saw it disappears and then
Yeah.
goes that away, but okay.
So,
Okay.
in the garage entry here, see we have our exposed Romex, our hollow door, so our horizontal crack right there. So that's going to be where the outside, and I always kind of compare the outside soil, if it doesn't get drained away from the home, to a pop can. You put a pop can in the freezer, it's going to expand. This has the potential to do the same thing. Pretty minimal, it's on the mortar joint on the bed, but if you address the outside, you shouldn't have any further movement inside. Here's some of the cracking we have, which is going to be on the left side of the front stoop. And like I said, I don't see any significant movement you can see the block, they start to go downhill right here. And there's really nothing that shows any signs that, I guess it's a significant issue. So, once again, the doors are safe reverse. Anybody goes underneath, she pops right back out. Any questions?
Looks good.
Okay, if you want, we can walk around the outside and I'll show you the door on the way out. So with the driveway, you can see the surface deterioration. Unfortunately, it's kind of one of those challenges you come across when you face the north.
Yep.
Nothing's really going to dry and dissipate in the wintertime, so a lot of people end up using salt solutions. Retaining wall, she's here. You can see a couple of stone there that are missing. Some that are kind of starting to lean a little bit. Honestly, it's these limestone walls are probably one of the better built walls because, heck, they've lasted for a long time. The bottom step's a little bit uneven. Here is kind of where we were talking about the soil. So realistically, if you were to build up the soil here,
Right.
you could maybe create a retaining wall, just kind of get everything to wash out this direction.
Truckload to go this way.
Correct. Once again, a little bit of granular loss on the flat roof, which is pretty common. And then right up here, you can actually see that lighter color on the piping, on the conduit. That's where it was secured at one point in time before they put the siding. So it's just something they forgot to do.
Oh, so this seems like a bracket there.
Yep, just a little strap that goes across and
Yeah,
attaches it.
that's pretty easy.
Yep.
There's your gap right there, which is going to be in the soffit. Like I said, usually you can push those up and then kind of push them towards the fascia, and it should be good. Interior light switch, and then everything in the garage is going to be ungrounded.
Yeah.
You got the exposed single strand wiring, and then the exposed copper is going to be up on this side. Right up on the white wire.
So one, yeah, the one under the eave. I see it.
Yep. So, other than that, I don't think we have anything out here that we haven't already touched on.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions or anything else you want to talk about in more depth or take a look at, or?
No, I'm actually pretty happy